So Jamil, how do you know this man, and what's your story?
Well, as, like Scott said, he got saved at 28, and so he was able to find himself around, you know, like-minded people, like-minded Christians, and he found himself in a ministry down in Cabrini Green called Sunshine Gospel Ministry, and so they had recognized a problem. Sunshine catered to children who were younger, and so when they got up to 8th grade, is that right? They were losing all of the kids that they had worked with, you know, from a very young age. They were losing them to the streets, you know, once they moved into their teen years, and so this group of people invited Scott along, and they decided they were gonna come up with a program that would cater to, you know, teenage kids, and so that was called SLAM, and so my story kind of comes up to that point where Scott's story kind of begins also. I grew up in Chicago. I also grew up without a father. I was raised by my mom, who raised 5 other boys. There were times where, you know, my male cousins were living with us, you know, my female cousins were living with us. So we grew up in a pretty full house most of the time without a father. You know, my mom did this alone. And so, you know, the difference between me and Scott is I didn't know that I needed one. You know, you know, none of my friends had fathers. You know, we're 13 years apart, and so from where Scott is, and you know, the time where he grew up to where I started to grow up, you know, it was a little bit more of that, you know, fatherless homes and things like that. And so I didn't recognize that I didn't need a father. I knew who he was. You know, I knew he was my dad who was in jail. You know, he was around maybe when I was 7. Maybe he took us to a basketball court. And then he was around for my 11th birthday, and then I didn't see him again for a long time. And I didn't recognize that I needed a father. You know, I had, you know, 5 brothers who could teach me, you know, to play sports, you know, and things like that. And for the most part, I was a good kid. You know, I didn't gangbang. You know, I hung out with people who did gangbang, but you know, for all intents and purposes, you know, we didn't know that we were poor because everyone else was poor. You know. We didn't know that, you know, there were places where people didn't get shot. You know, we witnessed our first shooting very early on. I think maybe I was 10 or 11, you know, so that was regular. That was regular life for me. And so fast forward, you know, through my teenage years, 1999, I think it was the first year of SLAM. Right. It was just after my 17th birthday. You know, I was on the basketball team in high school, and one of the kids in my high school, he was our equipment manager, invited me and my best friend at the time, Frankie, to SLAM, because one, he was dating a girl who attended SLAM, so that meant, you know, more girls. And then secondly, he told us that, you know, we'd be able to play basketball, and so girls in basketball, and we were
perfect marriage there, right?
Perfect marriage. And so
that wasn't in the programming plans. Yes. Yeah.
And so here it is, Monday night, you know, 17 years old. I'm walking through the doors of SLAM. And I had been to other outreach programs, you know, growing up. You know, I knew the gospel. You know, that wasn't a problem. I knew the gospel, you know, front and back. But first night through the door, you know, here's Scott trying to hug me, you know, and I'm just like, you know, let's pump the brakes here, you know. And so we had met, you know, that was where it happened. I met Scott there, and you know, at the time Scott's still a baby Christian too, and Scott, you know, would spend time with us, you know, after SLAM. You know, he'd take us out, you know, we eat a burger. He would, you know, spend a little bit of time with us during the week, you know, ask us how things were going, you know, how's school, how's basketball, you know, how's this one issue that we talked about, you know, and things like that. And so I think I went to SLAM maybe 4 or 5 more times, you know, throughout between February and summer by the end of school. So at that time, you know, I was pretty much left to my own devices. I didn't have any structure in my life. There was no one asking me where I was. There was no one, you know, telling me to be home. There was no one telling me to do homework.
No accountability, really.
No accountability at all. You know, I was a 17-year-old kid, you know, just kind of guessing through life. I was spending most of my time either at my girlfriend's house or sleeping, you know, on the floor in Frankie's room. And so about you know, May or June Scott had come to me and said, hey, you know what, why don't you come and live with me for a season? And so immediately my answer was no, because I had just met him a couple months before, and anyone who knows Scott knows that Scott goes from A to Z pretty quickly, and I was a little standoffish to that at first, but after talking to some people who were in my life that I cared about, they thought that it would probably be a good idea to do that, and so I moved out. We moved out. He lived in Schaumburg at the time. To a kid growing up in Chicago, that's a world away.
So I was going to say culture shock, right?
Oh man.
Like Schaumburg, is that in Illinois?
It's just like, we have to get on the expressway to go here. It's like, it was so far away. And so.
Can I just jump in and I'll give it
Sure.
back to you? Is that okay?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because what had led up to that is I got a call from Jamil's best friend's mother, actually. Mrs. Rodriguez, and she's like, hey, do you know Jamil's situation? And I'm just like, I know Jamil, like, what's going on? I was actually driving in my car, probably driving illegally, talking on the phone, and she said, he's spending half of the nights on my couch, and then the other half of the week he's sleeping with his girlfriend at his girlfriend's house. And what do you have for that? And of course, we had just started an outreach. There was no budget. We got the space for free from Moody Bible Institute, so we were able to run Slam, but I was the only guy from the marketplace. So I was buying the pizza, for the winning team at the end of the month, but that was about it. And so I ended up hanging up the phone and saying, hey, I'm sorry, we don't really have anything for that. And in the car driving, and it's just like, you have a couch. And it's just like, yeah, but I kind of like my couch, And but I think one of the things that God kind of pressed on my heart was the next question was, are you what you say you are? And so here I was saying that I was trying to share the gospel with these guys and walk life with them, and so then I had to turn the car around, and that's when I invited him to come
I'm glad
over.
you shared that, because I was going to ask you, why did you ask him to come and stay with you? So that totally clarifies it.
But,
so
go ahead. I'm sorry.
that's all right. That's all right.
So here it is. I'm in Schaumburg. He introduces me to the couch, which was brand new. It was a brand new couch. And so right off the bat, Scott, A to Z. All right, if you're gonna live here, here's what you gotta do. You gotta go out and get a job in the next 2 weeks. You gotta go to church with me 2 times a week. You have to do chores. Like, wow. So now I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I got to get a job, and now I got to do chores. And so,
structure
right off immediately, overnight. And so, finding a job wasn't a problem. I did that. But the importance is that he said that we had to go to church twice a week. And going to church, waking up on Sunday mornings to get to church 9 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, that just didn't exist to me regularly. And so we're going to church, and we get there, and I'd catch up on some more sleep, and Scott would be giving me the elbows, and things like that. But I always tell people that you can only go to church, and listen to the words during the praise and worship for so long before you start to hear them. I'm a music guy. I love music. Music speaks to me, and the longer I was there, the more this praise and worship just started to talk to me, and just to realize that these aren't just lyrics. These are people crying out to Jesus Christ about their.
His word does not return void, right?
That's right. And so we would go through church, and we would listen, the pastor preach, and I wasn't fully listening to the pastor preach, but Scott was really good about being intentional about our conversations driving from church. What do you think pastor was talking about here? How do you think, what do you think Jesus wants for your life, and things like that. And up until this point, I didn't have a clue what anybody wanted for my life. I was just going with the flow. I was very much in the moment, is what I would describe that point in my life, as in the moment. And so Scott and I, lived together for the summer. I had to go back and finish high school, so I decided I would go back and do that in the city. And so I went back, and I was in the city again, and again left to my own devices. I would still talk to Scott every day. We would still see each other a lot, but again I was to my own devices. Sleeping at my girlfriend's house again, and things like that. I wasn't saved yet, and I was trying to live, you know, according to the law. You know, we were trying not to have sex and things like that. But I had gone back to live in Chicago, and you know, at the end of summer, and in November, my girlfriend had gotten raped, and I remember calling Scott. I remember exactly what I said to him. I said, "Here it is, you know, where you guys are telling us that we shouldn't be having sex, but someone comes and takes that away from her." And I was more upset at that point than I had ever been in my entire life.
Wow. Wow.
And it was at that point that I realized, wow, I am a very angry kid. You know, it's just something, it'll take something so very little to bring that anger forward. And so, to be truthful, it was scary for me. And so,
I think you wanted it. I think you told me at that time that you wanted to kill someone.
Yeah, it was a very angry moment in my life. And so, my birthday's on New Year's Eve, and church had like a New Year's Eve party or whatever, and we were in church on my 18th birthday. There was an altar call, and I decided that I was just going to give my life to Christ. And I said, you know what, Lord, I didn't even know that I would be living at 18, and here it is, where I've gotten, you know, now I know that there's absolutely someone who loves me. You know, I absolutely know that there's people who want better for my life, and so I gave my life to Christ that night on my 18th birthday.
What a profound statement! Like, I didn't even expect to live until 18. Like, how many young people out there actually have that thought? Like, I didn't expect to live to 16 or to 18. Or
I'm sure, you know, in the city, I mean, I'm sure it's pretty regular.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, as we're listening to the stories, I want you to know that GRIP has a website, and we'd love for you to take the opportunity to go and visit that website. And there are some great photos and just sort of what the ministry is all about. And I know we haven't actually gotten totally into that yet, but we will. But go ahead, Jamil. I just wanted to share that for folks that are listening.
Sure. And so I gotten saved at 18, and here it is, I'm saved. You know, I would still be seeing Scott pretty much every day, if not seeing him, talking to him, you know, kind of walking with him. And comes to about when I'm 20, you know, 22 years old. Scott and I mean, it was very rare that we would be seen apart from each other, you know, at churches or things like that. For all intents and purposes, people would meet me and be like, "Oh, you're Scott's boy," you know, and I was fine with that, you know, because if being more Christ-like, being more Scott-like, then I would just be as much like Scott as possible, you know, because I looked up to him, I wanted to make him proud, I hated to disappoint him, you know, and in that fear of disappointing him, you know, there were times where I would lie to his face just to not have to deal with the disappointment, because my identity was in Scott, you know, that's who I was Scott's boy. And so around about 22, you know, I was having this unhealthy relationship with this girl that I had previously dated, and I had gotten her pregnant. And you know, Scott was very, very much influential or he gave his opinion a lot, and what
No,
I should.
I can't imagine him doing that.
Right, he was, you know, he had an opinion about everything. You know, you should not be dating this girl. You should not be doing this. You should be doing this. And he was giving his opinion to this young lady, so much so that it got to a point where I just had to say, Scott, I need you to mind your business. I need you to remove yourself from this situation. And what Scott heard was that I was telling him that he needed to remove himself from my life. And so it was during that time that we decided we needed to take some time away. And you know, and so we had gone from either talking or seeing each other for 6 years every day.
Wow, to cold turkey.
To cold turkey. We had during that time, I think we didn't talk. We maybe talked 3 times in 3 years, maybe. And so at 23, I got married. You know, and during that time, you know, people were very much against me getting married, and me and my wife find ourselves on an island. We were alone. Here it was, this person who had been everything that Christianity meant to me was out of my life, and I had to live it now. Here I was, a Christian, and I had to live it. You know, I needed to learn how to read on my own. I needed to learn how to pray on my own. I needed to learn how to be a Christian husband on my own. And